What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the AFC podcast. Welcome back to Inside the AFC Studios and all that good stuff. My special guest today is Miss Asel Otunchieva. How was that?
That's good. That's really good.
We were doing a little prep before we got the podcast started, and you had mentioned your family. Is that more or less your background, or were you born and raised in New York?
So I was born in Moscow, and then I grew up in Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia. And then I moved to the US when I was 15.
Oh, sweet. So that region of Asia that used to be part of the Soviet Union?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's part of the Soviet Union. It's one of the former Soviet Union countries. So I grew up speaking Russian, and I grew up right after the Soviet Union collapsed. So it was still pretty much, Russian schools, Russian language everywhere, called Russian culture, very, very influential. So I kind of grew up on that.
Awesome. So how's it feel living in New York compared to once upon a time living in the Soviet Union?
I mean, I wasn't living in the Soviet Union, so it was like post-Soviet Union, but New York on a much larger scale reminds me of Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan's capital, because it's a tiny country, tiny town, but it's the capital. So it's the same kind of you can walk everywhere, you can take public transportation everywhere. There's always something happening. There's always theater and shows and people and noise, and I'm kind of used to that, and I grew up with that. So then when I eventually moved to New York, it kind of ended up feeling like home in some way, because I felt the same kind of energy around me. So yeah.
So the fast pace, so countryside, beach side, not so much your vibe.
I like to be on a beach, all of that stuff for vacation, but I think I just like energy around me. I don't know if I'm the one that necessarily provides the energy, but I kind of like to be near it. I like to kind of have people around. There's some noise there, some things happening here, and just like walking the streets of New York, and there's so much coming at me, and I kind of like to be just next to it. So yeah.
No, I feel you. I was born in Brooklyn, and it does feel like home living in the city, and it's a big dynamic because I grew up in the country upstate for the most part. And I don't know, it kind of feels like I'm a Ligerite sometimes. I don't know where to really just thrive, or feel at home sweet home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Have you ever had that problem? Maybe going back and traveling, feeling in place?
It was weird because I felt like I formed myself, like I formed as an individual by the time I came to the States. I think at 15, you kind of already have your childhood, your formative, but then my adult view of the world was formed in the States. So it's, I referred to Kyrgyzstan as home for the longest time. I'm like, oh, I haven't been home in years, or home. And then I realized eventually when I think it was after I came back from a trip to Scotland. My stepdad is from Scotland. So we went as a family to he was showing us around, and I came back to New York, and I just felt for some reason emotional. And I didn't when I moved to New York, I wasn't that excited about it. I was like, I moved for work, and I was like, oh, I'll probably get tired of the fast paced, whatever. So it surprised me, it crept up on me, because it was like a few years after I've lived there, moved there, and then I landed, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm home. I'm at home. And since then, I'm like, I'm not I cannot even say Kyrgyzstan is home. It's my motherland. Well, I guess Moscow is my motherland, but it's where I grew up. But home now is somehow home is New York. Although I know I cannot technically call myself a New Yorker or whatever, so I don't feel like that either. But if you ask me where home is New York, I guess. Yeah.
I can't speak on behalf of the rest of New York and New Yorkers, having been born from New York, kind of yeah, I am a New Yorker. I don't think there's a standard other than being born here that makes you a New Yorker here. But I feel like if this is a place that you call home, that you are contributing to, you wouldn't want to potentially live anywhere else in the world. You contribute to the society, you're here to stay, and this is home. Then I think that's what makes you what you are. You're a New Yorker.
Oh, yay. I got approval.
You have my blessing. You have my consent and my blessing. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. You heard it here, folks. Asel is official. But I'm curious though, like, what made you want to, like, I guess stay? What do you do? What do you do? What's your background?
So I moved to the States. My sister moved first, so it kind of paved the way for me. She's 7 years older. She did it first. She wanted to have education and more opportunities outside Kyrgyzstan. And I also wanted more opportunities. And I also like the idea of America. I grew up, watching the movies and with the music and everything. And it just felt exciting, I guess. And I felt like I would have way more opportunities there. So I came to the States on a tennis scholarship. So because of that, the choice of schools was limited to the schools that would give me a tennis scholarship. Like I was good enough to be on a team, but I wasn't this outstanding tennis player that would just go anywhere. So it was like, I have a few schools that I choose from. I was 15, so my mom didn't want to send me to like LA. Like one of the schools was in LA, so that's where I wanted to go. But she was like, no, you're going to where your sister used to go, in this tiny little middle of nowhere town where we already know the coach is there and everything's set up. So everything's fine. Everyone's to be trusted. So that's where I ended up. I ended up in Houghton, Michigan, and the school was an engineering school. So I kind of always liked creative stuff, but there wasn't really much there for that. It was like a really good engineering school. It was like 99% guys, just engineering just was like the heavy, and then there was business. There's just the two things that were kind of available there. So I didn't know anything about engineering. So I was like, well, I always liked math, so I guess I'll do business. So that was kind of a weird way that I just ended up studying business. And then I was on a student visa. So for me, it was always this thing back of my mind. I'm like, what am I going to do after graduating? Like I kind of want to stay. It's hard to stay. So for me, I could not do, right now I'm doing acting. I could not do any of that because nobody would give me a visa like for acting.
Right.
Like that was not an option. So for me, it was like a practical decision after practical decision. So I just ended up kind of in doing that, going to get my MBA in finance because accounting with finance makes sense. And um, I get more opportunities that way to get sponsored for a work visa from a company. And I had to make sure that everything was lined up so that they could not pick me, And so I was just focused on that. And then once I finished my MBA, I moved to New York working for a consulting firm, one of the consulting accounting firms. And I did that for like 8 years. And meanwhile, I got my citizenship. So as soon as I got my citizenship, because before that, I still was, I was like, if I quit this and go acting, and then for my citizenship interview, they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm going to be like, "Well, I'm a starving artist." Like I wasn't sure, so I was like, I have to make sure. And then as soon as I got my citizenship, I was like, okay, now I actually have a choice of like to sit back and think, like, what do I want to do? And then I enrolled in Stella Adler Acting Conservatory while I was going to work. So for 2 years, I was doing kind of both. And then I think at this point, I think it's like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago almost, I quit, just quit corporate world and just, went into this creative thing. And I'm still kind of flailing about trying to figure out how to be in this, but I haven't regretted it at all, not even once. So
How to like a sustainable
yeah,
doing it.
I need to figure out how to make it a sustainable living. I haven't yet. I just come to terms that like my identity is not corporate anymore and it's this, then it just, everything is up in the air, but I just have to kind of get comfortable with that. Yeah.
So, that's interesting you say that because we've spoken with a lot of people, not with an identical background. Your story is a little bit more unique, but did you ever like feel like any similarities between being a tennis athlete and trying to just like apply some of those skills into the theatrical space?
I think for me, it's interesting because with tennis, I guess I'll start with the dissimilarities. Like with tennis,
Yeah.
I was always really, really good with practice. Like with tennis, I would give it my all. in practice, but when it came to actual matches, I would get so in my head, and I would just get this fright, like this stage fright, like tennis stage fright, like, and I would just, I was the, I would choke, like I would always be much better in practice than I would be when it came to it. Versus in theater, I really liked and enjoyed being seen. Like with tennis, I would prefer to play a match, nobody watch me, just, just I just want to win, but nobody watch me. With theater, I would just enjoy. I still had stage fright, but I still enjoyed at the same time just being seen. Like that part I enjoyed. Like I liked somebody to be in the audience. I liked the audience. So I like it's a bit different. But the I guess what tennis taught me is to appreciate how difficult things are. Like and that's what made me sign up for acting conservatory, because technically you don't have to. It's not like for engineering you have to get a degree to be able to go to interviews. You technically can go to casting auditions without having but for me it was more to make sure that I understand and I actually like it and I actually want to do it, and I don't like that just the idea of it, or like when it's a hobby, it's fun. I went to the nitty-gritty day to day and to see if I actually like it enough to switch my entire life, life, career, everything to that. And tennis showed me that, because how you always like, oh, you're watching sports and you're like, oh, like it's easy, you should just do this, you should just do that, and you can,
Yeah.
but if it comes to you and comes down to you doing it, you're like, oh my god, it's so hard, everything is so difficult, it requires so much to do any of these things. And that I kind of with tennis, I had that understanding. I grew up playing tennis every single day, during summer twice a day. If you miss a few days, you already can tell you're out of it. Like there is no days off, and you have to, it's such discipline. And even with all of that, I wasn't the best that I've, around. Like I was good, but there were people better. And what it takes is for a lot of people, like they give up school, they give up. I'm not saying you have to, but I just saw all of that, like how difficult things are. And same for acting, it was just like, I had this attitude of, I cannot just come in here thinking it can be just this easy thing. Like I have to, nothing is easy. It's just more of like, if it's worth it for you to go at it and do it. So I guess with theater, it's just like, I liked the grind. Like I liked the grind of it. I liked preparing. I liked learning. I liked struggling. Like I'm okay with like losing.
The process.
I also kind of like the competition. And I think that the athletics growing up like helped me with that. I'm not scared of it. I feel like I thrive in it. To me, it's more of like, oh, I am even accepted here to be even, be able to compete. I'm honored by that. I'm honored. Like if there is competition, healthy competition, I'm just glad that I'm around these kind of people. And like, that's where I'm being pushed. And I kind of like thrive on that.
Did you ever like have did you have more of like maybe a preference at this point in your education where you kind of just felt more of like it's not ping pong, it's more like tennis, where it's either theater, television, or even film, or like a certain genre type of things you like to do, perhaps musical theater, something like that?
I can't sing to save my life, so not musical theater, but I like film a lot. And I think what I gravitate towards watching is indie dramas, like slow moving slice of life, with plot necessarily not being the main point, but more just like some moments, some vibes, certain things, and just something more realistic, or something, like Nomadland. Like these kinds of things, I think is what I like watching. So I would love to be a part of telling one of those stories, or being, part of a project like that. But to be honest, anything, like any kind of way to do anything creative is great. So I love theater, I love TV, film, anything is great. But I think ideally indie dramas and film would be my ultimate goal.
How many movies do you think you've accomplished thus far?
So far I've been doing a lot of student films, thesis films, like grad school thesis films. I've been doing horror films, like low budget indie films. and some web series and short films. So far, because I wasn't signed like with an agent, it's been mostly me applying to like casting networks, Actors Access, Backstage, by myself. And things that are available there are usually things where people didn't hire a casting director, so they're open to the public. So those things tend to be more low budget. That's kind of where I am a lot. But last thing I did was in terms of film was there was this feature film that was inspired by the series Lost, and we shot it in Vancouver, and that was kind of cool because because it was I think it was very well written. There was this director who wrote it, and he's the one who made it happen. And I think it's actually pretty good, very well written and put together. It was just such a small team that I was shocked how how well it like came together. It was just a few people. So that was that.
How long do you think you've been doing independent film now?
Let's see. I graduated from Stella right before the pandemic hit. So that was 2019.
It was like March 2020 when it actually really took over and things shut down.
Right. So then I graduated 2019. So that's now 4 years? It's going to be 4 years. Right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. 20, 21, 22. Quick. That's crazy. Time flies. That's crazy. So I guess that's what it was. I mean, for the first couple of years after that, I still was working. And that's kind of part of the reason why I quit, is because I was, sort of kidding myself. I was trying to do both, or I was trying to set myself up in some way before I make the leap. And I was trying to make it so that I can and then I tried so hard, and it just didn't work, because within consulting, it's not, you just have to be there. Like, you cannot just go do movies and whenever I did get any kind of castings, or if I got projects, my first reaction, instead of celebrating, I would just get so stressed, because I was like, oh my God, I have to shoot this movie now. I have to figure out a way to get off work, which is not guaranteed. I have to, all of these things. And I would just get so stressed, and I'd have to turn down so many opportunities and so many things because I just cannot, because of work. So eventually I was like, I have to just quit and see how this goes, and just give myself a chance, just give myself an actual chance. So I think that helped a lot, but also it's a very scary place to be after years and years of a steady income, steady identity, steady everything, to all of a sudden, I was here. I was here in undergrad on a student visa. So I couldn't even work as a waitress. I've never had because on a student visa, you're not allowed to work outside of more than 20 hours outside of the student area. That's very limited. So all of a sudden I quit my job, and then I was so stressed out about money that instead of quitting my job and trying to do acting, I quit my job and I started worrying about money. So I was like, anything, I was catering, doing all of these different things. And then I found myself just doing that. And then I had to take a step back, and I was like, wait, did you quit consulting to do catering full time? I'm like, you have to, you have to allow yourself to kind of leave your schedule open to have availability to do at least commercials, do commercials, do print work, do something within that field, in front of the camera. But it was hard, because then I felt guilty, or I felt like I wasn't doing anything. It's difficult, a mindset. I kind of had to be like, no, I deserve to want more. I deserve to give. It's a balance, because you also have to pay rent. So it's a constant back and forth. Yeah.
And you only got 30 days to figure it out.
Yeah.
No, it seems like you're doing everything right. And no, I like that we've spoken about on several occasions, a very similar situation where you have to find that happy medium to balance it all out.
Yeah. Still looking. still looking.
There was always an opportunity, I can only speak from experience, where you could actually find the play or the playfulness in and the theatricality and wherever you are, you know,
Mhm.
and whether or not it's very interesting being an actor because you don't need to have a degree, like you said. Experience is hand down what, you know, is going to get you that call back. But there's an opportunity in every moment, especially when you're out in the field with the unexpected being present, you know. And I've met some
Mhm.
really cool people while catering and got to do some pretty popular events once upon a time. Have you ever worked downtown at Spring Studio?
Spring City. I'm not good with, like, my memory is not good with that, so I'm not
You would
sure.
remember. It's probably a
I would
hard.
remember.
Oh, you would remember that, like Spring Studio, Spring Place downtown, just
Mhm.
outside the Holland Tunnel. It's like a club. Basically, it's very unique clientele. But you could do weddings there. You could do Universal. I think they're Universal. Yeah, Universal Music label came in there. Glamour magazine came in there. I met Hillary
Mhm.
Clinton there. You know.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah, like
crazy. Yeah.
yes, I was in the VIP room. I was the dude, and there she was.
Did you get to talk to her?
I know.
No.
It's just like what do I say? I don't want to. I'm not
Mhm.
like I'm the guy. It's not that I didn't want to like interact and say hello and just be like, hey, I'm Phil. No, I just
Mhm.
want to. I just I was there for work. I was doing my job. You know, I just
Right.
kind
You're not
of.
really supposed to. Yeah, you're supposed to just kind of do your thing. Yeah.
And it's like you had other celebrities in the room that wants Malbec wine, and I'm like, I got you, no problem. So I'm on my shit, ready to go. I got the
Right.
man, I got the wine, I got the door. Oh,
Mhm.
I got to look up her name, but actually, I met an actress like, and we had a moment. It was so sweet.
Mhm.
Um, I cannot remember her name, but she was actually the lead actress in a movie called Michael alongside John Travolta, and it was like back in the
Okay.
80s. And
Mhm.
basically, she was coming down the stairs. I was looking up to my left, and all I did was just extend my arm like so. She grabbed it, and she's like, "You're so sweet." I'm like, "You're welcome."
Like a fairy tale. Just like,
Uh, I
yeah.
was and the whole thing was it was actually like a women empowerment night, you know, and it's just like, oh, I contributed as the non-toxic masculinity dude in the room, like saying, "Here you are, miss," and it's just like, yes, we had a moment, and it's not like I got to talk to her about it afterwards, but I don't know, maybe one day she'll actually see this podcast.
One day. Yep. She'll be like, I remember the young man who, who
I hope
gently
I
led me
have
down the stairs.
like I hope she wasn't like I don't remember, like I definitely have calluses on my hand, but she didn't say anything about it, you know. She was very Everybody was very emotional. They were giving out great speeches. The one woman from Saturday Night Live was hosting the whole thing. So
Mhm.
that was pretty cool.
That sounds
There's
like a fun event. That sounds like a really fun event to be catering at.
no, it's an awesome space to work at, and you never
Mhm.
know who's going to come in through the door. And to me, it just felt like a of course I did it I definitely did it because I wasn't working in the field, and who's going to say no to a couple like $100 at the end of the day and do that a couple of
Mhm.
days a week. So you know, if
You
I
gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah.
I have
You
to
gotta
do
make
it,
that money. Yeah.
and you only got 30 days to figure it out, and if you're just not
Mhm.
maybe a little bit unprepared, you got to do what you got to do.
Yep.
I'm actually pulling up that actress right now.
You wanna know the name?
All right. So she played Dorothy Winters, and her name is Andy McDowell. She and I had a moment. Shout out to Andy McDowell, wherever you might be. So, what's your next step? Do you have like any ambitions to create your own work? Maybe dabble a little bit in writing.
That's a great question. I wish I was this amazing writer. I don't know. I have to figure that out. I do see a lot of actors kind of doing having their own production companies, creating their own material, and it does usually end up in much smarter work and much better careers for them. So I see the value in that. I need to get on that level. I kind of right now live with it where I like to just kind of be cold on set, be given my things to prepare and prepare them, get my thing done, and then everybody else like focuses on their own thing. I think the idea of like production or anything just overwhelms me. I always thought that, ideally, if I'm able to work as an actor throughout my life and, eventually just from sheer experience of being on set and just all of the work, I'd probably, grow into being ready to be a director. But in my mind, that would be like way down the road, like when I'm seasoned, old, had so many experiences, just, like all of that stuff. So, now I admire people who just gusto, who just go and do their own thing, create their own work, podcasts and create their own things. I need to like, I guess I think I need to work on my mental, thing of like, I can do it. But also I always hated writing. Like
Yeah.
in school, I'd rather do a whole like half a book of algebra,
What?
I loved algebra. I would rather do like half a book by myself. I'd study and do that than write one sentence of an essay. Like all of the essays, I'd always put my name at the top and I would just stare at the blank page and I would just for days until the day is due. I just hated it so much. But then at the same time, I am told that when it's not for work or for school, when I just don't worry about writing or how it comes off, but I just like talk or write or whatever, it could be entertaining or it could be good quality material. So I think the way that I think about writing still has to do with, essays for school, like, your commentary on this like piece of work and whatever. And you try to sound smart or you try to get an A, all of those things. So I have to move away from that and be like, what do I have to say? Like, what do I have to bring to say that's actually interesting? Yeah, I don't know.
You said something actually that really just I don't know, I get triggered so easily with a moment of inspiration where I just go deeply into that moment and then also I get knocked back with an idea. Have you ever I think it's called a cipher, where it's almost like there's hidden codes and messages and these certain puzzles and clues and things like that, and I never really done a deep dive, but when I was okay at algebra, and it just kind of made me wonder if every algebra, you find x equals whatever, and even though that's the answer, but what if that's not actually the overall answer? What if that's just one part of a whole bigger problem? Kind of like when you do the crossword puzzles and you just pick a certain selection of certain numbers and then you put them down at the bottom and it has a whole different message that ties it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of seems like I don't know. I don't know why it's just popping in my head, and maybe it's the airplane over your right shoulder. But I'm looking, I'm thinking, what if this woman plays the role where she actually creates this this whole map of algebra where it's actually spelling a sentence, but you don't actually know the language it's in, as far as whether it's in Russian, in letters of the alphabet. At what point do you just start identifying to put words together? And that's what this woman does. She just creates these clues on how to find, I don't know, the treasure at the end of the map or something like that. Not that the plane there had anything to do with it, but what if somebody had that skill set where
Mm-hmm.
you're basically you're like the opposite of an international spy, and you just create this whole culture of people following clues or something like that. I don't know.
That's cool. That sounds like a script. That sounds like an adventure movie script. Yeah.
That's what I mean. I just come up with all these dumb ideas, and I don't know how to write either. That's why it's just I'm so easily inspired. And
do you write as well? What do you?
I had to learn, or I didn't even learn. I just never worked enough to the point where I could actually 30 days later pay rent on time. So along the way I had to compromise or just find a way to just maybe create my own content. And it took years to complete some of them, but it really all depends. Acting for me was never in the cards. I was a construction worker. I had a life and I was fine with that. And the next thing you know, you have to go to college, and I was a business major at the time too. And I just kind of found my way doing musical theater because people asked me to do it. And I thought maybe, why not get a little stage experience? So it just really piled up really quickly. And just by getting exposed to all that, it just kind of let out all of these things that, you know, I guess were hidden inside of me that I did not even know exist. And
Mm-hmm.
algebra being one of them, because I didn't even know I was good at it until I went to college to actually try it, or at least just to stay in school. And sure enough, that was my A. I don't remember a thing, but just, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I started writing a little bit. And another reason why we started the Astoria Filmmakers Club, because everybody has a story to tell, but maybe we just don't have the network or the money to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
now there's over 900 of us, you know,
Wow.
but that's the weirdest thing, you know, I get blown away. Like, it's only been 3 short years, barely, and it's coming along. And I wrote I think it's okay. I wrote a story about New York City Fire Department during the 1990s, and I'd very much like to produce that show.
To make it happen. Yeah.
Hard yes. Hard yes, absolutely. And there's you know, there's a lot of roles in that series. Like, there's like, it's not just about the FDNY, it's about the community they serve. It's about a bunch of things, you know, sub story, subplot. It's a massive show, and there's probably it's probably over 150 roles, like principal roles,
Wow.
like contributing characters. Like, it's a mammoth.
Yeah. It sounds like a giant project.
And
Sounds
then, of
like a
course,
giant project. Yeah.
and it will be. I know it's going to happen. I truly believe
Mm-hmm.
in it. That's my next step. And next thing you know, from those 150 characters, we got the spin-off series.
Yeah. No, that's great. Like it's always crazy how things just grow eventually on their own. Like the 900 people, that's a lot of people. But I mean, did you know that it's going to get to that point, or is it kind of like one step at a time and then it kind of unravels and has a life of its own?
You know how it really started? Like, I didn't put a number to it of expectation on, like, you know, what I did know is that Astoria, Queens had everybody, for the most part, who work in the industry living in the neighborhood. And I'm thinking to myself, I've heard that there's approximately like 50,000, give or take, actors or people in the industry that do live in New York City. So if the vast majority of them happen to live in Astoria or in the surrounding area, how is it that we're not shaking hands, or like we actually know each other? And which was the
That's
only
true.
reason and that's how it all began. You
Mm-hmm.
guys want to just shake hands and move forward. And now it's become like a chamber of commerce exclusive. It kind of, like, I'll say exclusive, but it's like, it's a niche chamber of commerce for people in the industry, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Congrats. That's really
Oh,
cool.
yeah, thanks. Shout out to everybody who's been contributing thus far. I could not have done it without you, and you do know who you are. And that was another thing. I actually gave out I didn't give out awards to like people that like I know closely, but you know, like it's like official Astoria Filmmakers Club, registered New York State, 501c3, certificate of appreciation. Click, click, click.
Oh, nice. Fancy. Sounds sounds very official.
Oh yeah, it was totally official. I even put my signature on it and digitalized it and put it on. So I sent them a copy, so now they get to print it and put it on their, I guess, on their vision board.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what's your next step? Do you see yourself maybe getting more into commercial work, or do you want to like stick with theater a little bit more? Would you try musical theater just for say you did it?
Look, I love musical theater. It's just when I was little and I was singing around the house, my mom always would get like a headache every time I sang. And then my sister was much more straightforward. She pulled me aside and was like, sweetie, like please do not sing in front of people. It's just not, and they're so right. I'm tone deaf. I'm completely tone deaf. It's just not, some things you're good at, some things you're not. I enjoy listening, to stuff. I just cannot. I love dancing. I love dancing. So I
Oh,
could be in the background, doing some, moves
ensemble work.
that don't require too much, flexibility. But that's where I would live in a musical theater. I would be like a backup dancer, like somewhere in the corner or a
So in
tree or
Peter,
something. Yeah.
so if we did Peter Pan, you could play the treehouse.
I would be a treehouse. I'd be messed with the treehouse. I'd be rooted, and yeah, but I would not. The tree would not sing at all, unless it was, one of those. What was it? My best friend's wedding, when she's supposed to be like a really bad singer,
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
scene, yeah, where she's supposed to just like shock them how bad she is at it. Like that would be, I'd be, well
And it's
cast.
like, they say a little prayer for you. That part.
I think so. Yeah, when
Yeah.
she's in a restaurant just singing for him, and he's just like, whoa, never
How,
heard. Yeah.
I'm sure you would do that though, right? Like you would have a moment and just be like, yeah, I'll sing. I'll sing. Can you karaoke? I'm sure you've done karaoke, right?
I try not to, but then if I do, I cannot carry a tune on my own. I have to have like the music playing at the same time, and I can like sing along to it, or somebody else and I can like join in. But by myself, I don't remember. I don't like the ins and outs. I wish I was a good singer. I feel like I was like, oh my God, people with good voices, they must sing to themselves all the time. I feel like if I had a good voice, I would just sing like nonstop. But yeah,
I bet
dancing
you
is where
I
I
could feel
prefer.
I could feel the coach in me just kind of sparking, saying,
You're like, okay,
"You're
you're
my
gonna be
all
a
right.
singer.
You are going to be a singer, and I'm going to show you how." I hope that there's got to be somebody I know listening to this podcast saying, "Girl, everybody could sing. They just don't know it. You just got to sing sing about algebra. What's x equal?"
Great, great. Yeah. But yeah, what's next for me? I feel like commercial print and all of that would be great to just sort of ideally, I would make all of my money from something creative. So ideally, I would make money from commercial print work and things like that. And then I would still just keep hitting, the trying to get into film and TV, and theater too, but film and TV projects. That's kind of that's kind of the goal. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned like maybe down the road as far as becoming a director.
Welcome to Happy Corner. This project strives to make safe housing areas for stray cats at an affordable price. It's so easy to put together that even your children could have fun making one. Help keep cats and other animals safe with their own little Happy Corner homes. You can help this project become a reality by donating to the GoFundMe page. Happy Corner homes are a great way to show those animals in need it's okay to be happy.
Um, like what type of movies are you really into that you may want to direct someday?
I really like, let's see, I wish I had better memory for names of movies. I started watching all the movies. I have like AMC A list that I signed up for a couple of years ago. So I just try to go to as many movies as I can. And what I usually gravitate to is like what they call artisanal films, like the
Artisanal.
smaller artisanal films. Um, so yeah, so I like those. Banshees of what is the name of it? Of Colin Farrell movie that was nominated. Like I like that one a lot.
Oh, when he cut
Nomadland,
his fingers off and stuff.
The Fingers Off. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I know
yeah,
what you're
yeah.
talking about. I watched it on HBO the weekend after the Oscars. Oh God,
Mhm.
that movie threw me for a wild ride.
It's
Oh,
just quirky. I just like quirky. Like it's just. I think I just enjoy good acting. And the thing is, like those movies,
that was a
character
good part.
movies.
Yeah, like I'm. Please continue because I'm trying to. I never quite understood the movie to the point where it's style, unless it really
Mhm.
is along that artisan, quirky. Definitely, I think it was such an honest story where it's not a feature film, where this is the type of story that you could actually believe that does happen in real life all the time.
Exactly. I just like to watch something and be like, in some remote part of Ireland, in a village, there's this characters who are, like that. Also, it's so universal because it's like, it doesn't have to make sense for you to feel slighted. It doesn't have to make sense for somebody to not want to be a friend anymore. But at the same time,
That
you want,
hurts.
it hurts. And the thing is,
Yeah.
people play it off cool, like, oh, whatever, I don't want. But it like the child in us is hurt, and to see that in a screen, it's like, no, it hurts. And you see both sides, and one person's done, and the other person's just, there is no closure, there is nothing, and it's just this bizarre, weird scenario. And the way that they play it out is really extreme and weird. She's just quirky. I don't know. I like it. I like this kind of like stories. Like Nomadland was really emotional. You know, it was just the right amount of like slow, but still enough happening. And certain, you know, certain situations felt like it was just like real. And that maybe that's what it was. It was like real people just like being themselves. And to me, that's the height of cinematography. Like for me, that's the height of achievement. If I stop thinking about it as, you know, movie acting or whatever, and I just feel like, oh, that's a real person talking about his son dying, you know, or something. Like it's just so raw and real. And it's just like those little moments is what I live for. Like those little moments inspire me so much because it's like some kind of humanity, like some kind of humanity that's clear to everybody. Like we all feel it. It just like connects us. And when I feel those, you know, like no matter how like what kind of a day I'm having or anything, like that's why I also like love watching theater because it's live, like it's in front of me. Like any kind of connecting like that, every time I'm like, oh, like these are the moments we live for. Like I live for. Like these are the moments. Like nothing matters. Just like this little moment, like is inspirational, and this little moment like connects us to our humanity.
Yeah.
So for me, those kind of movies connect me to my humanity. So that's why I'm like, I want to be a part of something that for somebody, you know, just connects them. You know, it makes them feel like, oh, I belong. Like everybody feels this way, and you know, like see something and be like, oh my God, I know exactly how that feels. Like I know exactly the nuance of that is crazy, especially when it's very realistic and there's like this nuance and you just like, you see it happen and you're like, oh my God, like I literally could have been having this conversation like with my boyfriend, with my friend, like the other day, you know, I like that kind of stuff.
Wow. So, amen, sister. It's that. So the song that he actually wrote was, and that's the name of the movie. It's called "The Banshees of Inisherin."
Inisherin, there you go.
Yeah,
Like something. Yeah.
I forgot. I had to actually look at it for a second and be like, "Oh, that's right, Inisherin." That's actually, I think, the name of the village in Ireland as well, right by the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually performed. Let's see, Brendan Gleeson. That was the actor.
Very good.
He cut his hands off, and he's done a lot. Like
Very good.
this guy's been in so much. He was in Braveheart. He was in.
Oh, you gotta put a thing that warns people who haven't seen the movie, the spoilers. I'm a spoiler crazy person. Like if somebody spoils a movie, and I just realized we've been spoiling a movie for the past 10 minutes. Like we literally just spoiled the entire. We gotta put a thing like whoever haven't seen this movie, like skip from this to this.
It's like, well, you know what? They were Oscar nominated, and if you haven't seen it by now, a couple of months, like it's really that's on you. Like we're gonna talk about. They talked about it, and actually, they even brought the goat donkey thing on the stage where everybody would know about this movie. It's been on HBO. You know you have it. If you haven't watched it and you're listening, don't blame us.
Listen,
Spoiler alert,
I didn't grow up in the States, so I missed majority of the classic movies that all of y'all seen. So for me, I'm that annoying person who is like, oh my God, no spoiler. And they're like, Asel, it's been 55 years. Like you've had time to watch this. And I'm like, no. It's still on my list along with all of these other classics. Like I'm still getting to it. Like I'm finally in my life where I can watch all these movies. So for this reason, I carry my beats with me. Seriously, at work, in corporate, like we sit in this cubicle, so everybody's next to each other. And these dudes like next to me would always eventually start talking about shows, movies, and they'd always spoil a movie I haven't seen. And that irks me to no end. I'm the type of person, I don't even like watching trailers. Like if I buy a book, I don't want to read about, like, I just want to like, I don't want anybody's interpretation. I just want to see, and I just want to be surprised. You know, I just don't. So for me, I just get so upset. But then I'm like, I'm being a little bit unreasonable. So I just had my beats with me. And whenever I hear them starting to be like, oh, what have you been watching? Whatever, I'd be like, hey, just give me a second. And I would put on my beats. I would turn up like a rap song, like all the way up so I cannot hear anything. And then I would do a thumbs up. And then they were like, fine. And I'm like, just talk, you know, and then they would like tap me when they're done. They're like, we're done talking. You can stop now, you know?
And so, so it's like you ruin the moment for everybody because you suppress their constitutional right of free speech. And it's just like, no, excuse me, time out. Okay, continue.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm literally like, let me just like let me just protect myself from this. You'll talk, but I'll protect myself from this. Because I used to actually get up and Game of Thrones. I was not caught up. I was not caught up. And every Sunday, the entire thing would talk about it. And they were like, no, we'll talk about it without letting you know. I'm like, you can't, I don't know. Like somebody's like, I was very happy. I'm like, I know exactly what that means. So I would just get up and take a walk. But then I'm like, I have to work. I have to do work. Like I cannot just keep walking around every time. So I was like, I have I have headphones. Like we came to a solution. But yeah.
I mean, the fact that I'm sure so many people agree with you too, because the spoiler alert, you want to actually be surprised when it happens, or maybe the whole season is going by. You haven't watched it because you can't have the suspense as the fan. So you wait until episode 10 and then you just binge watch that whole day leading up to it. And meanwhile, if there's things on social media popping up or there's a commercial or like a news broadcast, all of a sudden it just ruins the whole experience for you. I mean, why do you do that to yourself? Why can't you just watch like everybody else, be a part
I do now with things like, oh my God, with things like Game of Thrones, I had to be like, okay, every Sunday I just have to see it, because I know as soon as I open my phone there's going to be a meme or something, and I'm just like, also like The Last of Us also, It was like one of those things where I'm like, okay, whenever it was Sunday, Saturday, I was like, we were watching it because I cannot have it spoiled. Yeah, definitely. Now I have to be, or if I don't watch it for a few days, I try to stay off social media, not too much, but I try to kind of like, I'm a little on the defensive with all of the memes. I'm a little crazy with that though, because a lot of my friends, they don't care about spoilers. Some people like look up as they're watching the movie, as they're going to the movie, they'll look up how it ends. Like some of my friends will be like, okay, so what is this about? And okay, what is the ending? And I'm like, I can't, like, what are you doing? Cannot do this.
Like, you can't watch the movie. No.
I know.
You got to shut it real hard.
I went to watch Hamilton, and there was this guy sitting next to me. He kept looking at his phone and looking at his phone the entire time I was watching it. And I was like so upset. And I was like, okay, so maybe his mother is dying or something. Like maybe he's figuring something out. Like just be,
There has to be a reason he's doing this.
Be empathetic. And then the second, thing starts like after the intermission. And my friends that came with me, like, they're more chill than me. Like I get really like worked up over it. So they're watching me. They're laughing. They're like, oh my God, Asel's going to start a scene. I'm trying not to cause a scene. And then like he keeps looking at something. So I look over to like, what is he looking at? He's Googling Hamilton. He's Googling Hamilton on his phone. And I'm like, you're watching it. Just like wait to get home. Like, I don't get it. Like just literally Googling Hamilton. I'm like, there's something wrong. I think some people just like, they cannot not be with their phones and they just get bored. I think his wife probably made him come to this musical and he's probably just like cannot just sit and watch. So it's just like
that, or he must have just taken it to extreme. I'm really into this, but I don't want to be surprised because I'm sure like Hamilton dies. It's American history. Everybody knows it. Like we know. Like
it's probably like, what are they saying? What are they rapping? I cannot. Like,
what does he have to actually look up? Like you probably, unless what, like, do you think, did we like, I don't even know. Did you ever talk to the guy? It's just like, maybe he didn't understand English and he was trying to like get interpretations of it written.
I don't even remember if I said anything. Usually I would have said something. I think I asked him to like stop, but I don't remember. I tried really hard not to cause a scene because I feel like eventually people put their phone away. And if something comes up and they're looking at it like, you don't want to be like yelled at or be told off by somebody like you're a child. So I don't want to do that to anybody. So I usually just like try to like block the light from my face, or something. But eventually, if it's just like pure disrespect completely, at that point, I'm like, sir, could you put that away, or whatever. But anyways, we derailed from
That's not a derailment. No, like
it just became me complaining about everything there.
that is really funny though. No, I mean, like, even like, I don't know, dude, like if somebody wanted to actually write a character about your personality, I think you would be the comic relief and leading lady all rolled into one, and having these little quirks and circumstances. Your story is definitely cinematic. I love your story so far. No, truly, I think you got a wonderful, beautiful story. And even how you experience like a Broadway musical, which is hard enough for you in particular, because you can't sing, you want to listen. And meanwhile, you could have chose to watch it on Disney Plus, but did you do that? No, you're watching it live. And what's going on? The guy sitting next to you is ruining it for you. It's not fair.
I know. I'm like, these tickets are expensive. I'm like, like, let me have my experience. let me have my day. But yeah.
You need your moment, and this is your moment. You're here to relax. You're with your friends. Everybody turn your phone off. You're not even kidding.
No, like, oh, but I realized some of my friends, like back home, I went home and one of my friends from Kazakhstan flew in to see me like a few years ago while I was in Kyrgyzstan. And we went to watch a movie, which she asked me to go watch. It was some stupid, like it was something I wasn't into, some kid thing that was not, I don't know. But, you know, we went to this movie and then she got a call in the middle of the movie and she picks it up. Her mom is calling her. Nothing happened, just I guess to catch up. And she's literally in the theater, just like, hey. I was appalled. I'm looking at her and I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I was like, what are you? And then she's like, like, and I'm like, oh my God, she's that type of person. Like, she's the type of person who knows what she's doing, but she's like, it's fine, not a big deal. Like, she's chill about these things. It's fine, whatever. She had a whole conversation. She had a whole conversation with her mother. And then we got out of the theater and I was like, what happened? She's like, nothing. I'm like, why did you pick up? She's like, oh, my mother would spin out of control if I didn't pick up. And I was like, in the middle of the music, I was like, okay, it's like with me, don't do that. Like, it's just no.
It's like, okay, but next time we go out, we got to establish some boundaries.
We got yeah.
You because I don't want to waste your time and I certainly don't want to waste mine. But when we go to a movie, that's why we're there.
I'm like, now that we know how we are, I'm like, let's go to separate movies. I'm like, we'll pull up together and then we'll go different movie theaters and then we'll get dinner afterwards. But I was like,
you can't sit next door. Now you know.
It's funny, yeah. But that's the thing, everybody's different. So like your friends show you, like, you know what I mean? Like things you're like appalled by, and then your friends do it and you're like, well, you're my friend. So like
I think you're the true friend because you actually no, you're definitely a true friend because you actually spoke to them about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
like,
if we are to remain, that's the thing. Like if I speak to you about something, that means that you are a true friend that I want to keep in my life. Because if you're not, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just never gonna see you again. Like I'm just gonna like, like it doesn't, like why it doesn't. But if it's something that like and this is a silly thing, but I'm talking about something important. Like if I see something important that we need to talk about, if I have that respect for our friendship, then we have to talk about things to continue the friendship or to continue the thing. So yeah, I'm very direct when it comes to
no, you're a director. You're a director in development. And if you do see something and you say something, you're a natural director. We just got to get you behind the camera and tell us what to do.
Yeah, no, I like to be directed. I'm like, just give me my little
your little happy corner and then just
tell me what to do. And I'm just gonna, I'm like, what's my line? What's my cue? And that's it. But yeah.
So I don't know if you got a chance to really like talk about it, but I think when I asked like what your favorite movie was, why'd you pick Manchester by the Sea?
So it's a hard question, your favorite movie. Like I hate questions like what's your favorite of all? Like it just puts so much pressure. I'm like, oh my God, now I have to remember every single movie I've seen. So I put Manchester by the Sea because I think I just like remember it. Like it's just like I just remember when I watched it. I remember I really liked it. But of course there are a lot of other movies that I really like. But that's up there with them. I really like Casey Affleck's performance. Michelle Williams is always amazing. She's always like, she's never done a bad performance in her life. But like, I think the writing is hilarious. But because it's just, I don't know how to explain it. Like in the beginning, he's just like walking around fixing people's plumbing issues or whatever, and he's just so upset. But like, the writing is hilarious because it's not over the top. He's just him, and then somebody's giving him shit and he just says something. And I was just like laughing out loud. Like, I was just like, this is hilarious because it's so realistic. Like this is how a guy would say something. Like this is how somebody would talk. Like this is
real life.
Funny.
It's not like
funny. Yeah, and it was just so grounded. Like all of the acting, all of the writing, all of the things, nothing was overdone. Like they took their time, like they have balls to like just take their time with things. Like I appreciate when movies do not push for things happening all of the time. I'm like you have, like when I guess a good singer, like they know they're good, and therefore they can do some weird stuff in the beginning. They can talk for in the beginning, they can just be quiet for a bit. They don't rush into proving to you that they like, oh, this is going to be a good song. They just like do some weird stuff, and you're like, oh, this person either is really good or just delusional. But like, I like when movies do that, and I feel like this movie did that. I feel like this movie was like, it just took its time. It knew it was good. It was just right. The acting was amazing. The kid, Lucas, whatever his name is, like Lucas, I'm bad with remembering names, but the kid was so good, and their chemistry of the guy and the kid are so good, and and the story is so heartbreaking. It's actually like so heavy, the underlying thing of it, but they don't put it up top. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of just like there, so it kind of like creeps up on you. Like I liked it. Like I don't like over dramatized, dramatic, melodramatic thing. It's more of like
Oh, that's
the
right.
thing
Yeah,
that
you're right.
creeps up on you.
It was
Yeah,
Lucas
and
Hedges. Yeah,
yeah,
he's
the
done some.
story. Uh-huh. Sorry.
No, I was agreeing with you because I never learned Lucas Hedges' name. I remember seeing him in a movie recently after this. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
Honey Boy, Shia LaBeouf's director debut.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, I'm almost like I got to click on Lucas, but I'm almost 1,000% sure it was him. He was in
It's
Lady Bird. A lot of
Lady
Oscar.
Bird.
Where Honey? Yeah, I knew it. Yeah, he was in Honey Boy, and that same kid. He played Otis, the older brother. Oh, and that's right. I forgot about that. He was also in Mid-90s. He also played the brother.
Oh, I've seen Mid-90s. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
he's
no.
he does a lot of cool stuff. I've seen him on stage too, I think. I've seen him in Waverly Place, the Waverly Place. He was on Broadway, I think. A couple of years ago. He's good. I just like the movie. I just liked everything about it. Like to me, that's the type of movie I kind of like. It's just, real life stuff. And it's like not trying to be melodramatic. It's based on super heavy stuff. Like you've seen it, right? Like the
Yeah, no, I've like whenever like before it was even nominated for an Oscar, I had seen
Mhm.
it, and it was a hard hit and a tough one to really watch because like when the fire happened, every hair on my body completely stood up, and I just was like I was just really in shock, how quick an accident like that could happen. But it just like no spoiler alerts, but it changed the guy's life to a point where I don't blame him for feeling
Yeah.
how he feels. Like
Yeah. It's just like it shows like you cannot fault either of them for anything about how they reacted afterwards, and everybody deals with their own
grief.
tragedy and grief in the way that they can. Some people are moving on, some people are stuck, some people are this, some people are that, but it was very human. Like nobody was a villain.
No.
Everybody, you understood how everybody reacted the way that they reacted to things, and how everybody was. You just like everybody's just trying their best, and everybody is heartbreaking. So much, it was so heartbreaking, but like understated heartbreaking. Like it crept up on you, it's like gut punch. Like it's like people are not like overly emotive. It's just kind of like they're trying not to be, but there's a lot of heaviness there. It was great. It was great. I love that.
If you go like it's a false expectation if you ever go to a movie telling yourself that there's no way you're going to cry today, you just don't even bother going to the movies at all because you already spoiled it for yourself and everybody in the room. You'll probably accept yourself from your mother. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad you actually said that because you're right. It didn't have a villain, more or less, like a sort of cliche style of storytelling. Do you think there's a name or a type of or a genre where there's movies being made that are just rich in truth-filledness, where a villain isn't really a part of the algebraic equation?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like right now, majority of the movies and shows are like that. Like they're moving away from the even stuff where, superheroes, where it's like based on comics and it's specific stories, even there, they go into villains' backstory. They try to make them, they try to make us understand the complexities of it, all of that. So I feel like they're everywhere now. They're just trying to like show us, except for, I think, sometimes war movies. I think they still, some of them are more nuanced, but some of them, they still sometimes go into like, okay, this war, like us, them, eliminate the target. Like it becomes like that, and sometimes they make it like very clear. They're like, oh, these are the bad guys. Like these are really the bad guys in the movie, and it's like, okay, it's always a little more nuanced, but I understand. Like sometimes you just want to see an action movie, and I'm always an annoying person in an action movie, like people get killed. And so a lot of the times, like innocent people, I'm like, technically these people are innocent. Technically these people are just doing their job protecting this, compound. And this like main character just comes in on his mission, just kills all these random people. And my friend's like, Asel, these are just like, they don't matter. They're just random people. And I'm like, they're not random people. I'm like, what makes them less important than the main character? I get it. Like, I'm like, why are these innocent people getting killed by this main character? Nobody cares. I'm like, this is yeah. So a lot of the action stuff, I just have to get on board. I'm like, okay, these are the bad guys. It's okay.
So in the beginning, like at the movie theater, watching Age of Ultron, with the Avengers coming in and just totally taking out Hydra. That's like, these are people. Why are they all dropping dead? The Hulk just took out a bunker with people inside of it. Who are they?
I am that person. I'm always like, why is one person more important than the other? I always hate in the movies where they're like this main character, well, it's always like, oh, like their feelings are more important because they're the main character and it's about them. And I'm like, what about this random person over here? Like, what about their feelings? Like, how come they just get discarded so easily? But I think a lot of that has to do with writing, 100%. But that's why Game of Thrones was so interesting to watch, right? Because they were so rich. And of course there were villains. Everybody was a villain except for maybe two people there, right? Like everybody is a villain in some way, but it's so nuanced. It's so rich. It's so cool. And you never know what's going to happen. Like, I love that kind of stuff. Game of Thrones, I loved it because every time it's again, like real life, not in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways, because you don't know that the main character is going to survive. No. After the first season, I was so mad. Right. I was so mad. I watched that on DVD because I wasn't on the thing from the beginning, but I watched all of the first season on DVD. And, the main guy was the main guy. Like, he was literally everything. The story was revolving around him. And if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, you guys can whatever, but like you should.
Yeah. Like, by now, you're turn off the podcast and beat it.
Yeah, it's called Filmmakers Club. But the first season of Game of Thrones, I watched it, and I was like, such great storytelling, such great, the main guy I love, so noble, like the most noble guy I've ever seen, like so good. And then they do the thing that they do. And I just was shocked, especially the way they do it. They give you hope and they just like, that's it. I was so upset. I was like, I am not watching the show again. This is it. Like, how can they do that? Can they even do that? Like, I was like, I'm not watching this. That's it. I'm done. I'm done with the show. I was so upset. I was like, they took out my favorite person. Like, what this is. And of course I watched afterwards because I hated it and I loved it because I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do to me. Like, you're supposed to do this to me. You're supposed to rip my heart out and supposed to make me feel like nothing is safe. Nobody's safe. All of my favorite people are probably going to die because in real life, like, if you're super nice and whatever, you should be willing to die for that because you probably will, all of these little things, and it's like every time you're on the edge of the seat because every fight is not a fight. Every fight you're like, please don't die. Like, please, who are they going to kill today? Like, please don't be that person, please don't be that person. And you just like that. I love that. Like, that gives it meaning, like in life, right? Like death gives, I don't to get philosophical, but in life, like death and the finality of it gives it meaning, Same with these things, like in the movies. That's why sometimes I'm struggling watching superhero movies and whatever. Some of them are different because in my mind, I'm kind of detached. I'm like, I know they're going to come back, or even if they don't, if it's going to be sequel, prequel, their birth story, their end story, they're going to come in some way, somewhere. I'm like, nobody's really at risk. I'm like, people always make fun of me in movies because they're like, she always wants somebody to die. You know, whenever there's a movie and it's like, I'm like, the father should have died. And I'm like, the child should have died. Like they should have killed the child. And they're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, that would have been more realistic. And they're like, that would be horrible. I'm like, yeah, I would suffer, but I also would like it because that's a better story. Like that would have been
It's a real story.
a great, yeah,
Like,
that would be like,
we're not sugarcoating the story or avoiding it.
yeah. Yeah, not enough people are dying is basically what I'm saying. In this shows and movies. Not enough important characters are dying. Yeah.
No, you make I haven't spoken about Game of Thrones since it ended. The last conversation we had about Game of Thrones was the little fan film project that we were gonna probably create this summer, but nobody's really spoken too much about it. But you're right. I get it. Like I was actually really worried to watch House of Dragons because I didn't really think I wanted to go through all that again, or even honestly, I didn't even want to know anymore, what happened before or what's going to happen now. But there were a lot of parts, not to, create a new topic, but I thought no, I did. I thought like House of Dragons did okay and had some fun things to explore on. The graphics were so much better. The acting is phenomenal. And I got to give them a lot of credit for acting. But the one thing that I think just kind of threw me off was that, well, first of all, I'm not in it, so I'm really pissed off about that. So I'm going to keep it real just for a moment.
Who would you want to be? Would you want to be like a good guy, a seemingly good guy? Would you like to be like an evil, but like a cool evil person? Like, what's your
are we talking to me like what I prefer, or Phil Cappadora, the actor? Like who are we talking to here? Like, because
okay, so who would you prefer? But also then, who would you most realistically get cast as?
From like if like a pre-existing actor character, if I was actually a part of it in some way, shape, or form. That's a very hard question because I related so much to Hot Pie, like from Game of Thrones, that chubby little kid. I definitely saw myself on the Night Watch in some way, shape, or form. I'm definitely part like Baratheon because there's just something about that entire region that's very much my personality. But at the same time, like when I was even writing, it's a combination of many because there's a character that does not exist yet that we kind of wanted to explore with Game of Thrones that we're making, or it's called
because you're doing it. Because you're doing that like, right here. Yeah,
but no, there is a character I really liked that kind of has like a fantasy space because by nature, I think if we relate it to the United States and like me as a person being in New York, I'm used to winter and summer, and I'm really used to both. I'm prepared for both. So I'm taking all this stuff into an account. But there's also the fact that I'm not really I'm not a Stark though, but I'm in the vicinity of it. So it's like I feel like an odd duck. So I created a whole different type of character that just did not really that just doesn't exist, but it's definitely in that realm. It's actually a house that actually was never a true house of noblemen or anything like that. They were just the commoners of the North, where it was just a collective. It was just a complete collective of Northerners that just had this like chill status quo, economical, but they were notorious shepherds and so good at like actually defending the flock from wolves, where like they're the ultimate security, and they supplied the entire wall with the dress and the tire, the wool, like you guys are going to be good. And like that whole like township, and it was actually called House Black Sheep because they are the black sheep. They don't quite fit in.
Oh, and that's so good.
I know. Aren't I so good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are sheep, which is the biggest problem, which is why it ties into like Game of Thrones so well, is because they got completely eaten alive by Targaryens, like it was just no question about it. But the secret is on how they're kind of maybe mysteriously still around and still alive is basically how they became in existence. So like all the trees in the north, how they have the faces on the trees of the old wood and stuff. So those were very sacred, and it really came to a point of the story of basically the children of the forest and the story of the first men, where at some point they had to have gotten along, but at some point, all of a sudden, there's a problem. And that's where I think this story is like that kind of drove me to tell this story on the dynamic of that third wheel that kind of just like balanced the scales, but without him, that's it. It just tipped the scales. So then it was literally helps lead in towards how the White Walkers even got created to begin with, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So basically the main guy, I didn't want to be that guy, but a younger version of that guy. I just like, I created this character like that started House Black Sheep, but it was never a house. It's just it's a society. But the one unique thing is that those trees that we never really talked about was like how they're able to stand like the cold and just survive and all this stuff. So basically the staff was basically a wooden component that was actually, unless it was from ash, was actually where Valyrian steel really came from. So if you even tried to chop down these trees, it would actually take Valyrian steel to chop it down, not just like a regular axe. So basically it came from the roots of those actual trees, which is where I would say like the adamantium of things would actually come in. But what I wanted to do is actually have this guy be a master of that staff, which he could use as a weapon or a tool, but he uses it basically to be a part of the whole, he's a shepherd. So that's what he uses it for. It's more of a tool than an actual weapon, but he's the guy who wields it. So I just like imagined like when I first started writing the story of House Black Sheep, it started the day basically where I couldn't tell if it was his last day on Earth or just like everything comes down to this point on either he's going to die or he's alive. And as now symbolically holding this of like why the staff exists is basically the whole series, but it starts at the moment where he literally has to fight the Starks and protect the flock from the wolves itself. It's very symbolic. And that's basically that part of Game of Thrones, GOT, a spinoff series, fan series. So
that's so cool.
It's thanks. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah.
So you would be like a wholesome leader, no nonsense, practical, supply everybody. But if you need to defend, you would raise up like Jon Snow, like he doesn't ask for trouble. He kind of does sometimes because of the nobility, but like, it's more of like, he kind of has to rise up to the challenge, like, because he has to like, protect or this or whatever. So
yeah, we definitely had a similar personality, I think. But, he's the type of kid that on his honor, just who would not say no to certain things, which he knew he could, but he was always in a position to, go with it. I'm not that guy at all. No. He was even like the Ram. He actually was called the Ram at one point because this is the guy, they lived in the mountains. They would run up to escape predators, up into the mountains, up the cliffs. He was the Ram. And he was a shepherd because he would also protect the flock. But his no is no. Not that he was not cooperating or anything like that, but you're asking him to do something that compromises who he is, So there was no ego involved. And yes, the guy was definitely a goat, no doubt about it. But there was there just wasn't this character that just kind of especially for me, I could not, like, everybody was perfectly casted. I could not be in that series, but if it was a character specific like this, 100% I could do that, because that is like more or less me as a person. But like if like it's to the point where I got to go to war to protect the flock, like, yeah, you're not gonna see the shepherd anymore. You're gonna see the ram.
That makes me miss the show now.
I know, and that's why I never talk about it.
Yeah, I mean it's from back in the day. I don't even know how we started talking. I probably brought it up.
Well, like a good death.
All the killings.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it does get to that point, please write my death.
Oh, the death is some of the most creative deaths. Yeah.
Well, that's how we remember it so well, is because we lost somebody. There was an emotional connection and just a beautiful way to go, because, hold the door. Who saw that coming? Oh my God.
Yeah, no, that was special. Those series were special. Regardless of how it ended, those series were special. Like it just did something. Like it took it to another level, like what a series could be for people and how how exciting it could be. Like everybody was watching it. Like everybody was excited about it. It was like such a big event.
It's
So yeah.
inspirational, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it really connected us on a lot of levels.
It did. It did.
Like, especially when you don't know somebody from across the planet, but then you meet somebody years later, put them on a podcast, and it's like, oh, by the way, see how much we have.
You're like, what did you think about this? Like, yeah, that's what it does, though. It unifies people. It's like everybody's, like Squid Games. It's like
great.
It's like, yeah, it's just like whichever culture, whichever thing. It's like sometimes people are like, but would they get that culture? Would they get that type of acting? Would they get that type of storytelling? And it's like, is it good storytelling? It is. Then yes, we would get it. Like, and it shouldn't be dubbed. It shouldn't be whatever. It should be what it is, and it should be subtitled. And then you get it. Like you humans, everybody gets it. If it's good, it's good. Like it doesn't matter. Like, if it's good, it's good. Like, for example, for me, that certain type of acting was a little bit too much in terms of what I would normally like. Like the type that I like is like super understated, everything under the whatever. But it made sense for that. It made perfect sense for that. For the series, that kind of stylized acting, it was great. And it was also different. So yeah, that was also exciting. That's what I'm excited about. I feel like now more and more it's just going to be different movies and TV and things just created where they're at. I just watched a movie on Netflix called Hunger. It's from Thailand. And for some reason it started out dubbed in English. And immediately I was like, it just sounds fake. What is this? And I was like, oh, this is supposed to be in Thai, and then it was very dramatic in certain points. It was hilariously dramatic in certain points, but it was just awesome because I was like, you kind of get a feel for someone's culture, for different. It's just, I'm just excited where it's going, and I feel like there is less need now to make everybody speak English, to make everybody speak certain or be from a certain area. It's like there is access now to different countries, and I feel like more opportunities now for that to rise up, and for us to be okay with reading subtitles and being like, it's actually fine. Like, I'm actually okay with doing that. It doesn't detract fully from the experience. If anything, it's kind of cool.
I gotta say, you're kind of cool.
Oh, thanks.
No, like, you got no, you do. You actually you're not, it's not analytical. You have such a respect on and honestly, this, solving the problem, not to go back to your algebra and just meticulously nitpicking everything or anything like that, but it's like something doesn't add up here, and here's why. Okay, this is how it becomes better. You 1000% are a director, and I don't want to see you wait decades until you really start executing this natural ability that you definitely have.
Well, thank you. Okay, well, that's inspiring. Okay.
No, it's start out with something very small. Like if you could direct yourself in something, there's no dishonor in that. I encourage it, you're actually putting yourself in a situation where you could actually just be the actress you definitely are, but have a little bit more creative control, because there's no doubt you definitely trust yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Well, thank you. The motivational coach in yours, you can sing, you can.
I did I guess
oh
man, am I typecast? I'm the motivational coach. Oh.
No. A part of you in that is you want to see people move forward with that. You're
I see you're I'm going by what you tell me. You definitely have a lane. I want to see your reel and stuff, and hell, fuck yeah, I want to work with you and direct me and get me killed in the most beautiful way, where it's just that was a beautiful story. I can't wait to work with Asel again.
No, the most beautiful way to kill somebody is for it not to just like that. When the character just goes through so much stuff, so much trouble, survives everything. And I'm like, wouldn't it be hilarious if they just fell out of plane, or something that just random death that meant nothing, just random after all that struggle. And then that's how you'd end the movie. I feel like that would make people so upset, in the movie theater.
That's what happened with Tommen when he just was gee, I wonder what his favorite band is. And he goes out the window and it's Fallout Boy.
Yeah, maybe not, because the people are just gonna get upset. At that point, I'm just a jerk, they're just like, can you just
Don't throw the
not
baby
do
out.
that? Yeah.
Like,
Just not do
like
that.
make it make sense. Although, like, have it tie into the foundation and this guy's character. And of course, like, if he accidentally like chokes to death on a peanut or something, come on. It's like, yes, we expect him to die, but it's just like, have fun with it, just a little bit, teensy weensy bit.
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah.
the hound, like, could you ask for a better ending for the hound?
Yeah. I just,
The one guy. He conquered the mountain, no? Hey.
it did. That had to happen. That had to happen.
I'm excited. Like, so if anybody ever listening to this actually wants to like follow up with you, like, do you have a website or an Instagram on how they could get in touch with you?
Yeah, I have an Instagram. It's Aotunchi. It's basically like my first letter of my first name and then like a part of my last name. So yeah, I have an Instagram page. People thought that I was like a fan of Lil Wayne because it's like Aotunchi, and I guess he says Tunchi in his thing. So like my coworkers were like thought I was the biggest Lil Wayne fan, and that's why I had like Aotunchi in my thing, and I'm like, that's literally just like my first name and my last name put together. But yeah, that's my Instagram.
There's always something like mathematical with you where it's like a piece of it. Oh my God. No, it's like, this is funny. I can't. This is so fun. So before we wrap up, I got to say thank you so much for an amazing hour and so on. Like, it didn't even feel like it. It was such
Time flew by.
Get into like hear your story and just like shoot the shit and like, oh my God, you're awesome. Like, usually when we wrap up the show, my pleasure, you're welcome. Every time we wrap up a show, we kind of close it out with something called The Right Words at the Right Time. It all started once upon a time when I was reading this book called The Right Words at the Right Time, written by Marcy Hopkins. And it's basically a collective of essays, interviews of celebrities, politicians, and athletes that, that we would all know today, but on their journey, especially when they were younger, like we are, there were always words given to them that just carried them through like the whole journey, for better or worse, through thick and thin, that never left them. And those were the right words at the right time. So my question for you is, has anybody ever given you the right words at the right time that have always been with you, that have stayed with you to help you just overcome every obstacle that's ever been in your way? Or do you have the right words at the right time of your own that you would like to share?
I think I have the right words of my own because I'm kind of going through a lot of it now, changing careers and everything that I have to do a lot of it work. And what I come to is, I think I read it somewhere, that, allow yourself, have respect enough for yourself and allow yourself to live gracefully. Just whatever that means for you. Like, you don't owe anybody anything. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. You don't have to prove to yourself that you're doing something some way or the other. You are allowed to live gracefully, with grace. Every moment you're allowed to slow down, take a step back, and just with respect for yourself, with enough respect and grace. So that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm just trying to live my days with respect for myself and grace, because I tend to rush all the time. And that's where I was like, throw myself into things and this and judge myself and all of that. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, no, I deserve to live with grace. I deserve to slow down. I deserve to take time. And I don't have to prove or become anything. I am already worthy of whatever, and I there is that kind of like, I have to keep bringing myself back to that self-respect and that slowness and grace that I try to kind of instill in myself. So that's a very long-winded way of saying it, but yes, allow yourself to live with grace.
That's awesome. Oh man, and grace. Honestly, I don't think there's a different interpretation of grace, more or less per person. I think that's something we could all truly understand by giving yourself permission, not to put pressure on yourself, like to live gracefully. And honestly, it's essential, I think, and those are, thank you so much. Those are definitely the right words. And I hope this is really, somebody's hearing that, and don't beat yourself up, like live, you're right. Absolutely. Like I'm summing that up in my head too. You're absolutely right. Live gracefully. Yeah. Because you said it yourself. You deserve that. Of course you do.
Just by being here, not when you reach something or whatever, just by being here, you already deserve to live gracefully, whatever that means for you.
I think we, I got to shut up because I don't want to ruin your moment. No, I don't, because it's like in every language on the face of the planet, there's got to be the right, everybody has a word for grace. No doubt about it. And you hit the nail right on the head. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. This was fun. Thanks for having me. I was so nervous because it's like the first time on a podcast and stuff, but I felt very welcome. I'm very
You're natural.
calm, and it's great. Yeah, thank you.
I'm excited for what's next. Definitely going to have to hit you up on the gram. Can't wait to actually publish this YouTube episode. For those of you who want to know more about Miss Asel, don't forget, like and subscribe, because we're going to tag her Instagram, her website, maybe even her email address if you want to work with her. And yes, talk about death in a very articulate way. I'm sure it's gonna be awesome for you guys to work together. And did you have any closing remarks, Asel, before we close?
No, just thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. You're awesome, and good luck with everything that you're doing.
House Black Sheep in the house, represent.
Represent. Yep.
The Ram himself. All right. So I will leave you with this, Asel, wherever you go. Always remember to never forget community, creativity, and joy. God bless you. And thank you for coming.